Well, good morning. Happy Tuesday, May 7th, 2024. What a beautiful day outside. The high yesterday was supposed to be 79, and I think it never got over 75. I mean, it was a beautiful day yesterday. Almost a little bit cold. It's kind of interesting. Hey, thanks for joining me this morning. Hope you're having a great day so far. Blue skies and quail and sunshine, and it's just an absolutely beautiful day. This is why we live here, isn't it? Just stunning. As far as birthdays, we have no birthdays today. I think we have one tomorrow. Let me look and just check and see. Yeah, today's 7th. Yeah, oh, wow. We have a whole bunch coming up, but none today. And let's see, what else? We already talked about the weekend. Yeah, I think we could go ahead and get into our study. Not much to talk about. So let's get into it. We're in 2 Samuel chapter 20, and David is back in Jerusalem, and now he has to deal with another issue. He's always dealing with issues since Absalom. But let's just start in chapter 20, verse 1. Now a troublemaker named Sheba, son of Bichri, a Benjamite, happened to be there. He sounded the trumpet and shouted, "We have no share in David, no part in Jesse's son, every man to his tent, Israel." So all the men of Israel deserted David to follow Sheba, son of Bichri. But the men of Judah stayed by their king all the way from the Jordan to Jerusalem. So he's called a troublemaker. Anybody that causes problems, a troublemaker, right? An agitator, professional agitator. Not entirely sure why he's against David. Now, he's a Benjamite, and if you'll remember, Israel is the northern kingdom, Judah is the southern kingdom, and Benjamin is around the area of Jerusalem. And Jerusalem could either be part of the northern kingdom or part of the southern kingdom. And as a matter of fact, when you look at the boundaries of the kingdoms, sometimes it includes Jerusalem and sometimes it doesn't. It's a very, very strategic location. It's also on a hill. And so, but Jerusalem is, and Jerusalem is in Benjamin. The Jerusalem is a very, very strategic location. That's where David built his palace. And so it's a very good place to basically rule over the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom of Judah. Northern kingdom being Israel, the southern kingdom being Judah. So this guy, Sheba, is a Benjamite, but he's like, we have no share in David, no part in Jesse's son. Now remember, Jesse is from Bethlehem, which isn't too far from Jerusalem. And he was a shepherd, a lowly shepherd, and probably not the right, we're going way, way back, but I imagine there are some people that are like, why are we being ruled by the son of a shepherd? Of course, we know that David fought Goliath, that he was part of Saul's court, that he won many, many battles and won the hearts of all the women and all that. But this is a troublemaker. Maybe he's new to the scene. Maybe he has always had a chip on his shoulder because of David. Who knows? But for whatever reason, he's starting to create this, this pulling away of people out of Jerusalem. And I guess you could say it's an insurrection. But it doesn't look like he wants to necessarily fight David. He just wants to take the people and have them follow him as opposed to David. So the men of Israel deserted David to follow Sheba, and the men of Judah stayed to be loyal to David. So this is something that David has to deal with if he wants to. Verse 3. When David returned to his palace in Jerusalem, he took the 10 concubines he had left to take care of the palace and put them in a house under guard. He provided for them, but he had no sexual relations with them. They were kept in confinement till the day of their death, living as widows. Kept in confinement. I don't know they're under house guard. I don't know exactly what kind of house guard that is. I mean, can they leave the house? Can they, when we think of house, we think of a structure, a building. But the house that they're talking about could include the surrounding properties. It's not like they're never allowed to go outside and see sunshine. If you think maybe compound is maybe a better way to say this. So he put them under house guard, and he provided for them, which is nice, but he didn't have sexual relations. If you'll remember, these were 10 concubines that David had, because he's got all these wives and he's got concubines. And when he left the concubines. Absalom decided to have intercourse with these, sexual relations with them. So now David can't have, they've been violated. David can't have relations with them, but he doesn't want to kill them. He can't marry them. He can't marry them off to somebody else, because then they could say, we've got a claim to share of David. I mean, having concubines is great if you're the king, as long as they kind of stay in the palace and they're yours and they're nobody else's and all that. But once Absalom comes and violates that, now they're women that really, there's nothing you can do with them. But David doesn't kill them, fortunately, and he just keeps them, under house arrest till they died, and they lived as widows. It's unfortunate for them. They're paying the price for David leaving Jerusalem. David could have stayed and fought the battle, and David could have taken the concubines with him, but he decided to leave them in Jerusalem. When Absalom came in, he had relations with them. All right, verse 4. Then the king said to Amasa, "Summon the men of Judah to come to me within 3 days, and be here yourself." But when Amasa went to summon Judah, he took longer than the time the king had set for him. And David said to Abishai, "Now Sheba, son of Bichri, will do us more harm than Absalom did. Take your master's men and pursue him, or he will find fortified cities and escape from us." So Joab's men and the Kerethites and the Pelethites and all the mighty warriors went out under the command of Abishai. They marched out from Jerusalem to pursue Sheba, son of Bichri. So you remember Joab is his chief of the armies. Abishai, I think, is number 2. And David he doesn't talk to Joab, which is interesting, but he talks to Abishai. And he tells him about Sheba. Sheba's gone off, and he's taking all the men of Israel with him. And I think they're going to be more of a problem than Absalom. Now, Sheba is not a relative of David's. Absalom was. So David was very cautious about how to deal with Absalom, but he doesn't have any qualms whatsoever to go after Sheba. So he pulls Abishai in and says, so they marched out of Jerusalem. So they brought an army, a regiment. They went out to pursue Sheba, son of Bichri. I'm going to nip this thing in the bud. And while they were at the great rock in Gibeon, Amasa came to meet them. Joab was wearing his military tunic, and strapped over it at his waist was a belt with a dagger in its sheath. As he stepped forward, it dropped out of its sheath. And Joab said to Amasa, "How are you, my brother?" Then Joab took Amasa by the beard with his right hand to kiss him. Amasa was not on his guard against the dagger in Joab's hand, and Joab plunged it into his belly, and his intestines spilled out on the ground. Without being stabbed again, Amasa died. Then Joab and his brother Abishai pursued Sheba, son of Bichri. So, little bit of a unfortunate thing. So he sends out Amasa to summon the men to come, and the men, it took longer. Now, Amasa doesn't have. Why didn't Amasa get the men over to David? I don't know. But the punishment for that is that Joab's going to kill him, and his intestines spill to the ground. I mean, it looks like they're friendly, but they're not. Joab appears to be more of a military general Joab is willing to do things that he knows are right to protect the kingdom, but sometimes they seem graphic and gruesome. Like Amasa, he's not back in 3 days, so I'm going to go hunt him down and kill him. Verse 11. One of Joab's men stood beside Amasa and said, "Whoever favors Joab and whoever is for David, let him follow Joab." Amasa lay wallowing in his blood in the middle of the road, and the man saw that all the troops came to halt there. When he realized that everyone who came up to Amasa stopped, he dragged him from the road into a field and threw a garment over him. And after Amasa had been removed from the road, everyone went on with Joab to pursue Sheba, son of Bichri. So from this, it appears that when David summoned the other men of Judah and said to Amasa, "Go get the men of Judah," apparently the purpose of that whole scenario was to go after Sheba and to to pursue him, because Joab couldn't go by himself. He needs an army. So Amasa was supposed to go help assemble the army. He doesn't. So Joab kills him. And then he says, "Okay, who's with me?" It's one of those mafia tactics, right? You kill the leader. It's like everybody's afraid. We don't really want to get involved in battle. We don't really want to follow Joab and go pursue Sheba. But Joab puts the fear of God into them by saying, if you do not follow me, what happened here is going to happen to all of you. Amasa was the test case. This is one of the ways. Now, this isn't how David leads. David appears to be a person who wants to be anointed king by the people because the people want him to be king. But Joab, as a general of the army, is perfectly fine using fear and intimidation and killing somebody as an example to say, this is what will happen to you if you don't follow me. And so they take Amasa's body, throw it away on the way. All the people gather around Joab and say, "Okay, yeah, we're going to go. We'll go follow and fight. Not a problem. We're with you, Joab." I think that's always the question when it comes to war, is do you have voluntary conscription into the army, or do you have involuntary conscription into the army? During the Vietnam War, of course, it was involuntary conscription. It was done by the lottery system. And some people who did not want to go fight won the lottery or lost the lottery and ended up going over to Vietnam. A lot of them were killed. And this was, involuntary conscription is a harder thing because you might have somebody that doesn't want to go. Now, obviously, if you're defending your homeland, for example, if an invasion were to come into Mexico and they were going to come here to the United States, there'd be a lot more people willing to fight to protect the United States, or from Canada or something like that. But when it's a war that's halfway across the world, no one's quite sure what the strategic value of this war is and why we're fighting the war. And it seems like maybe not everybody believes. I mean, when it's an invasion, obviously everybody's going to pull together and going to fight that war. But when it's a strategic thing, and leaders are saying strategically, we need to do this or else the United States is going to fall, those are harder arguments to make. And then it's also harder to get people to fight those battles. And so here in the United States, we conscripted during the Vietnam War. Since then, we've basically maintained a army by paying people to say, listen, the odds of you fighting in a war are pretty low, but we need to have military. And so we spend how many billions and trillions of dollars to maintain an army. And the main purpose of that, I mean, you may think that the main purpose is for the army, to do all the things that the army does. But the biggest purpose of that is so that we don't have to conscript people into war, so that we can have an active army ready to go, active military presence ready to go, should something, pop up across the world. And it's taken the United States a long time to develop this strategic army that exists all around the world that's ready to to fight an uprising. The question is, and the question will always be, is the value of that worth being able to be the world's policeman? And, historically, I think that that's always under debate. But sometimes you fight because you want to, because you know that if you don't, your homeland is going to suffer. And sometimes you fight out of being paid, and sometimes you fight out of fear and intimidation. And Joab is good at fear and intimidation. You join me in the battle, or else what we just did to this guy is going to happen to you. What's his name? Amasa. All right. Verse 14. Sheba passed through all the tribes of Israel to Abel Beth Maachah, and through the entire region of the Bichrites, who gathered together and followed him. All the troops with Joab came and besieged Sheba in Abel Beth Maachah. They built a siege ramp up to the city, and it stood against the outer fortifications. And while they were battling the wall to bring it down, a wise woman called from the city, Listen, tell Joab to come here so I can speak to him. He went toward her, and she asked, Are you Joab? I am, she answered. She said, Listen to what your servant has to say. I'm listening, he said. All right, before we get into this story, they went to an area called Abel Beth Maachah. And apparently this city has a fortress around it. So you can't go in or out of the city unless you go over the wall, which you can't do. So they're building up a siege ramp. So the more people you have, the more you can build up a ramp and siege the city. And of course, as a civil engineer, previous civil engineer, what do you need inside the city? Well, you need water, and you need sunshine. And as long as you've got water and sunshine, you can withstand a large water, food, and sunshine. If you're growing food in the sun, if you're growing food in the city because you've got sunshine and you've got water, then you can stay in the city for a very, 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 very long time, forever if you want to. And so this town being fortified with the wall, they're bringing a ramp, and the more people you have, you can build up that siege ramp. And this is one of the ways to get onto the wall. And once you're on the wall, typically these walls have ways to get down so that you can, so you can get up to the top of the wall, but you can't go over the wall. So once you get onto the top of the wall, you basically can take over the city. So they start building the siege ramp, and it becomes apparent that there's enough people. So your job in the army, at this point, aside from being a warrior, would be to go get buckets of dirt and to bring it over and start to build up this siege ramp. And of course, it doesn't have to be, every once in a while you'll see a siege ramp and it looks like it's a large ramp, right? But it doesn't have to be. It only has to be narrow enough to hold one or two people, and then, let the dirt slough off to whatever slope makes sense. They might be able to do this actually rather quickly, depending on how many people they have. So now we have this a wise woman, and she calls Joab. And he says, I'm here. And this is what she says. She said, listen to what your servant has to say. I'm listening, he said. She continued, long ago they used to say, get your answer at Abel, and that settled it. We are the peaceful and faithful in Israel. You are trying to destroy a city that is a mother in Israel. Why do you want to swallow up the Lord's inheritance? So she's saying, listen, I know you're building this ramp. I know you're coming in here, but we've always been the peaceful ones. And we don't want anything but peace. We want to be Geneva. We want to be Switzerland. And we've always been known as a peaceful place. And now you're going to come in and destroy a peaceful place, and this place that has lived for a long time under peace. And everybody's known that it's under peace. Once you do this, the game will be over, and we won't be peaceful anymore. And that won't be good for anybody. Far be it from me, Joab replied, far be it from me to swallow up or destroy. That is not the case. A man named Sheba, son of Bichri, from the hill country of Ephraim, has lifted up his hand against the king, against David. Hand over this one man, and I'll withdraw from the city. And the woman said to Joab, his head will be thrown to you from the wall. So, how many times have we seen this, right? I just want the one man. So you have, this is a plot in a lot of Hollywood movies, right? One person is in a Western, right? And he's in a town and he's hiding out in the town. And they're like, bring this guy out and we won't siege the town. But if you don't bring this guy out, we're going to come and destroy this town. And so the town has to make the decision. Do we protect this one guy or do we give him up? And of course, we see this in the Middle East too, right? Haven't we seen cases where countries are harboring, what do you want to call it? People. They're harboring terrorist groups, and they're not dealing with the terrorist groups. They're letting the terrorist groups live and survive. And so the question is to the local government or the state, the government of that country, to Iran or Iraq, you're harboring this terrorist group, and if you give them up, then we won't fight you. But if you don't give them up, then we are going to fight you. And so Iran or Iraq or whatever has to decide, do we want to harbor the terrorist group, or do we want and potentially have a battle with the United States, or do we not want to harbor these people and not have a battle with the United States? So the woman makes a case. She must have had a lot of power in this community because she doesn't have to go back and consult with anybody. She says to Joab, his head will be yours. It'll be thrown down from the wall. Verse 22. Then the woman went to all the people with her wise advice, and they cut off the head of Sheba, son of Bichri, and threw it to Joab. So he sounded the trumpet, and his men dispersed from the city, each returning to his home, and Joab went back to the king in Jerusalem. So there was that uprising. It ended before it started. He went to hide in this town. It was a peaceful town. The town's like, no, you're not going to bring all of David's armies to us. We're gonna cut off your head and give it to Joab. So they cut off his head, and poor guy. I mean, he's Sheba. He's now dead, and the uprising has been taken care of. Verse 23. Joab was over Israel's entire army. Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, was over the Kerethites and the Pelethites. Adoniram was in charge of forced labor. Jehoshaphat, son of Ahilud, was recorder. Shiva was secretary. Zadok and Abiathar were the priests. We've heard of Zadok before. And Ira, the Jerite, was David's priest. So these are now David's officials, which is interesting because we haven't really seen a list of all David's officials before. And this is David's cabinet, if you will. This would be like right now, who's the Secretary of Defense, who's the Secretary of Commerce, who's the secretary of all these different departments in the federal government. And of course, we know who they are because their pictures are on websites, and you walk into the Commerce building and their picture is up there, so everybody knows who it is. But these are David's officials. These are his cabinet. These are the ones he trusts. And of course, David needs this type of cabinet to run a country. And it's kind of cool that they listed, I think this is, we've gotten bits of pieces of this type of list before as we've gone through 1st and 2nd Samuel, but this is like the first time where we actually get a listing of all of David's people who are doing that. All right, so David's growing as a king. He knows he doesn't like, he puts the battles in charge of Joab, commerce. He's starting to divide up he doesn't have to make every decision. He just has trusted advisors and puts them in charge. And that's how a city works. You can't be like Moses and be in charge of everything. You have to enlist other people and trust them to do what you're doing. And David appears to be doing that. All right, so that is the end of chapter 20. And we can close in prayer. Gracious God, thanks for this day. Fill us with your love until we meet again. Keep us in your grace. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, let's see over here. All of you joining me online, and it's good to see all of you online. Pray you're having a great day. Go outside, enjoy the sunshine and the beautiful weather, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye.